We would like to begin by acknowledging the original custodians of the land, the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, their elders past, present and emerging.
Today, we will not be singing the national anthem, Hatikva, or the school song, and many of you will be sitting on low chairs as we commemorate this holy day.
Today is Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, on which we fast, deprive ourselves and pray. It is the culmination of the 3 weeks, a period of time during which we mark the many disasters befallen on the Jews, including the destruction of the holy temples in Jerusalem.
Typically, many deny themselves music and forms of pleasure to enter this period of mourning, a process that gets more stringent in the 9 days leading up to today. As a result of COVID-19, this year Jews around the world got into the Tisha B'Av mood several months earlier than usual.
This year, Tisha B'Av may look different from previous years. Synagogue services and group readings of Eicha will not be conducted together. However, as a Scopus community, there will be an optional mincha at the end of lunch. All are welcome to attend. Additionally, last night we had a Zoom with a meaningful discussion and reflection.
On an emotional and spiritual level, the Jewish world will mark Tisha B'Av this year at a time of rapidly shifting realities. A global pandemic with no known expiration date, adding a host of fears to an already somber day.
But as devastating as the losses throughout the Jews' 4,000-year journey has been, and as discouraging and unpredictable as the current situation, key to both the holiday and Jewish history is a steadfast clinging to hope.
But our yearning for a better world reflects a very Jewish belief in a better future. The Jewish nation has survived and thrived throughout the past 4,000 years, and we can get through this tumultuous and challenging time together.
On this day, we commemorate the saddest day of the Jewish calendar. The 9th of Av marks a somber day where a number of atrocities befell our people. The destruction of both the first and second Beit HaMikdash occurred on Tisha B'Av. The first, destroyed at the hands of the Babylonian Empire, and the second by the Roman Empire. Being one of the traditional fast days of the Jewish calendar, Tisha B'Av is the culmination of the 3 weeks, which begins on the 17th of Tammuz, when the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Romans in 69 CE. These 3 weeks are representative of the annual mourning period, where we mourn the loss of freedom, of Jewish culture, Jewish practice, and Jewish life. During this 3-week period, no weddings are held, we refrain from cutting our hair, purchasing new clothes, and listening to music. In the 9 days leading up to Tisha B'Av, we abstain from additional pleasures due to the intensified mourning period. Despite the deep sadness that encompasses our people during this time, the focus of these weeks is not merely fasting and lamentation, but our sages relate that those who mourn the destruction of Jerusalem will merit seeing it rebuilt with the coming of Mashiach. On Tisha B'Av, we remember and we mourn. We reflect and commemorate destruction, exile, and loss. We do not wear leather shoes and refrain from eating and drinking, among other things. Judaism relates that sinat chinam, baseless hatred, was ultimately what led to the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash.
But today, the world is a little different. Today, for the most part, Jewish people are afforded the same freedoms as others, and Jewish culture flourishes in all corners of the globe. Today, there is no need to hide our Jewish identity. And this begs the question, why should we take this time every year to remember all the evils done to us, to commemorate death and loss? Considering we are no longer powerless, should we not celebrate our success in overcoming the obstacles? The truth is, on Tisha B'Av, no commemoration is complete without acknowledging the miracle of our survival. Even as we mourn, it is important to reflect on the triumphs we have experienced. We must be thankful for the fact that we no longer worry about being crushed in our weakness. So, take this Tisha B'Av to elevate your sense of appreciation for the privileged position we now find ourselves in, to remain grounded and to fight baseless hatred with baseless love.
Over the past 9 days, since Rosh Chodesh Av, we have been observing increasingly stringent mourning practices, all in preparation and leading to this day, Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, where we mourn the destruction of the 2 temples, the Beit HaMikdash. We know from our sages that the temple was destroyed because of the sin of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. And so we've spent the last 9 days sharing podcasts of small ideas, little things that we can do to try and increase ahavat chinam, baseless love. We've shared thoughts and ideas about judging favorably, of increasing our empathy, of listening better, of trying to be a bit more humble. And today, the last podcast that went out earlier was about the notion of acts of service, how ultimately we are responsible not only for ourselves, but to contribute to the world around us, to shoulder the burdens of those who are less fortunate, and to help move the world towards a better place. I think that really is the lasting legacy of Tisha B'Av. Yes, today is a day of sadness, and yes, today is a day of mourning, but tomorrow a new day will arise. Tomorrow presents us with the opportunity to make a better world. We open Tisha B'Av by reading the book of Lamentations, the book Eicha. The word Eicha, the Hebrew letters, appear one time in the Torah, and they appear with a slight variation. When Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden and they sin by eating the forbidden fruit, they seek to hide, as it were, from God. And God, in this game of hide and seek, asks Adam and Eve one question: Ayeka, where are you? The word Ayeka has the same letters as Eicha. And perhaps implicit in the message of the day of Tisha B'Av is to really ask us, and for all of us to ask ourselves, where are you? Who are you? What privileges and blessings do you have in your life? What are you truly grateful for? And most importantly, what are you doing for others? If we can answer this question of where are you in the affirmative, and we can take responsibility for our answer to that question, then perhaps next year, when we think back to this Tisha B'Av, we can say that certainly we've spent the year making the world a better place and bringing ahavat chinam to those around us.
Tisha B'Av is a difficult day. It's a day of tremendous discomfort. We don't eat or drink, we sit on the floor, we feel uncomfortable. And so we should. Because the message of Tisha B'Av is that our world is uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable because of those things that if it weren't for Tisha B'Av reminding us, we wouldn't feel the loss. And that is why we need these artificial ways of reminding ourselves of what is missing in our world. We're missing the Jewish people living in the land of Israel. Thankfully, we are blessed to live in a time where we're seeing the beginning of the redemption of the Jewish people and the return to the land and an independent state for the first time in millennia. But it is still the case that half of the Jewish people live outside of Israel, effectively in exile. And it is certainly the case that anti-Semitism is rearing its head in ways now that it hasn't for decades, reminding us that our life outside of Israel is not necessarily secure. Tisha B'Av reminds us of what we have lost. And it reminds us that there used to be something in Jerusalem called the Bet Mikdash, called the Temple, which was the manifestation of God's presence on earth. And there was no place where it was easier to feel that sense of connection with the divine. And because we haven't had a temple for 2,000 years, we have no a way of imagining what it was like to be blessed with such an institution. Tisha B'Av reminds us of what we have lost. And when we pray and we work for the return of the Jewish people to Israel, and when we pray for the rebuilding of the temple, we're also praying for that messianic age in which the entire world will be at peace. The entire world will live in a state of harmony. A world that we cannot imagine, and therefore a world which we have to feel the loss of. Tisha B'Av reminds us of what we are missing and what the world could be. And so I hope that we take the message of Tisha B'Av, of what we are missing, of Jews living in Israel in their own land, of the temple restored and that connection that we have with God as a result, and above all, a world entirely at peace. And may it be that we work to achieve these things, but the first step is for us to realize what we are missing. That is the message of Tisha B'Av.